raise this barn, 1, 2, 3, 4. Raise this barn, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, and welcome to the next exciting edition of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd, now with our changed format, pick the number one movie on Netflix the day we decide to watch a movie, and then we watch that number one movie, and then we talk about it, and then we share our opinions and our love or hate of that movie. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, welcome to this special holiday edition of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. And I have to ask Todd about your Raising the Barn song intro.
Yes.
Is there a connection to the movie that we picked?
There's no connection to the movie, only a connection to our special guest on our podcast tonight.
Oh.
We've been watching My Little Pony all day long. So it's a My Little Pony song that is stuck in my head. And our special guest tonight is Selah Domer. Say hi, Selah.
Hello.
Are you excited to be here?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Great.
Wow.
And Selah and I watched the movie that we're going to talk about. We watched it last night. So.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Selah, to the podcast. I think you're our first ever special guest. So
it's true.
That's great. So the movie that...
But to answer your question, there is no connection to the song I sang to the movie we watched.
Right. Understood. It's a connection to our special guest.
Yes, just our special guest.
All right. Well, the movie that we watched was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the year 2000 edition, which features quite a few famous-ish people, at least.
Yes.
Jim Carrey plays the Grinch in this movie, and he's very famous.
Yes.
And then there's Sir Anthony Hopkins, who does the narration of the movie. And then there's a couple other people thrown in. There's your Molly Shannon is in it. Your Christine Baranski is in it. And someone who I felt like I should know, but I didn't know, but Jeffrey Tambor was in Arrested Development, so you probably know him.
Yes, I was going to bring him up.
Yeah.
Although, sore subject nowadays, because I think a couple of years ago he got hit with some misconduct stuff, so.
Boo to that.
Yeah. But there's also, the movie's directed by Ron Howard.
Right.
And of course, Ron Howard's brother's in it.
Yeah.
I always forget his name, but he's a Howard, so.
There's quite a few Howards in this movie, actually.
Oh, interesting.
There's a Clint Howard, a Rance Howard, a Jeremy Howard.
I think Clint is who I am thinking about. He's the mayor's assistant.
Hubris.
He is in pretty much every Ron Howard movie.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's who. Who else did I miss? Anyone else?
Let me think here. I don't think so. There might be someone. I just don't have the list in front of me because I'm holding a human being.
All good. I'm going to go ahead and say those are the only famous people.
Right.
So Ron Howard directs this movie, and it is 20 years old this year.
Yeah, weird. So weird.
Kind of weird to think about. What's this movie about? Well, if you've ever read the Dr. Seuss book, or if you've ever seen the 1966 version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, you're probably pretty familiar with the story. But basically, in this movie, it's a little bit different than the book. You get a lot more background on the Grinch and why he hates Christmas. So,
yes.
Basically, Cindy Lou Who is the daughter of like the local mailman person. She decides that the Grinch has gotten a bad rap, and she goes around and finds out his whole backstory by talking to people in the town.
Yeah.
And we find out that the Grinch is actually grew up in Whoville, which is where everyone lives, which is inside of a snowflake, believe it or not. And anyway, so Cindy Lou Who befriends, I wouldn't say befriends, I'll say she tries to befriend the Grinch and tries to convince people that he's not that bad of a guy. And so he ends up getting invited to this festival in the town. He comes and it doesn't go well, and then he gets mad and tries to take his revenge on the town. And the rest of it is kind of what you've heard and felt about the Grinch story.
Yes.
So, what did you and Selah think about this movie, Todd?
Well, let's do Selah first. Selah, did you like the movie we watched last night?
Yes.
Yeah? What was your favorite part?
Where Cindy Lou Who.
Cindy Lou Who was your favorite part?
Yeah.
Just every scene with Cindy Lou Who?
Yeah.
Mm. So you would recommend people watch this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy watching it last night?
Yes.
Yes. All right. I like this movie as well. I don't love it. I would say of the 3 adaptations of the Dr. Seuss book story and such, I think this is the weakest to me. But I still enjoyed it. There are like flashes of brilliance in this movie, I think, of just how comedic gold Jim Carrey is. And I'm sure most of the movie was just them being like, okay, do some scenes and we'll kind of fill in around what you do because you're just going to do what you want to do anyway. And so he but along with those flashes of brilliance came some, I don't know, questionable choices, I think, for this movie that is supposedly a kid's movie. There is a ton of not-so-kid jokes in this movie. Sometimes, especially when Jim Carrey's off doing his own thing and just, I don't know, ad-libbing or making up as he goes along. So that was just weird to me. Weird choices, I would say. I didn't really care about learning more about the Grinch's backstory. Like, I assume they were just trying to fill out a movie, but it's not one of those things to me that it was like the more you learned, the better the movie was. I just didn't care. Like, but still enjoyable to see. I think what I really liked about this movie is a lot of the practical effects they used. Like, there is some CG, and it's very noticeable because this is like 2000. So you can definitely see those parts. But then it's like lots of big made sets and stuff and costumes and all that kind of stuff. You just don't see that stuff nowadays that much. It's easier to do all this CG stuff, and CG looks so good nowadays. But for this movie, it's like every costume's on point. Every like weird thing about Whoville is good. Every crazy thing about the Grinch's lair is just enjoyable to sit and watch. Like, I think when this movie came out in 2000, I was kind of like, I don't really care. But as I watched it as an adult, and I certainly understand the adult jokes, it is more enjoyable, even though I can do without those jokes now that I get them. So, supporting cast is good. I feel like everyone does a good job in this movie. Jim Carrey goes way over the top sometimes, but I guess you would expect that with a movie he's in. So, I will just leave it off there. Matt, how'd you feel about this movie? Had you seen this movie before?
I had seen parts of this movie. I had never sat down and watched the whole thing beginning to end before. So it was my first time for that.
Nice. A Christmas miracle.
Yes. So, by the way, for all of our listeners, it's currently Christmas Eve, and we're recording this podcast.
We should say that.
So,
Yeah.
I mentioned it's a bit of a holiday episode, and we're definitely recording it at a holiday time. And it's a good holiday movie. So I agree with you about the kind of off-color content that, yes, kids aren't going to get it, but in a kids movie, some of it's just like, well...
Yeah.
Including, like, there's one racial joke in this movie where I was like, what? Yeah. Why is this here?
Where he's like, it's because I'm green.
Yes.
He's trying to get a taxi.
Yes. Yeah. So, but that aside, this movie won an Oscar for Best Makeup, and I feel like that's well-deserved. Jim Carrey's Grinch makeup alone is incredible, but everyone in Whoville who's an adult has this kind of big prosthetic nose mouth feature to them that is pretty extensive.
And a weird gut. Like everyone's got the plushy gut, except for kids.
Yep. And
which makes them look very similar to what's in the book.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that they were very they're very true to a Dr. Seuss sort of visual theme. That part of it's really good. The part of it, but at the same time, I felt very uncomfortable looking at the Who's in Whoville. I was just like, these are not like cute, cuddly creatures. They're like kind of misshapen looking, and I felt bad for the Who's of Whoville. But you know, I think they were too human to be that alien. Is I guess what I'm saying. I would have preferred that they were a little bit more exotic looking,
sure,
and not so close to human, because for humans, they're kind of like.
Well, yeah. There's also that random couple that is just super teeny tiny, and you don't see any other teeny tiny Who's. It's like just them.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest question I had watching this movie was like, what happened to that couple?
Yeah, you never know what could happen in Whoville.
Because there's no other super small people, like, at all. It's just that couple.
Maybe it's Whoville's version of little people. They're just extremely little.
No, there was an actual little person in this movie that I saw.
Well, I can't explain it then, Todd.
All right. Well, then I'll stop probing you for answers here then.
So, did I like this movie? Well, I thought it was pretty long. In general, I liked it. But it was long. It's over 2 hours. And I thought that was a long path to take to tell the story that, you know, the kid's book is like, 30 or 40 pages.
Right.
And we took 2 hours delving into the psyche of the Grinch and all this other stuff. So that's kind of the biggest knock I have on it is that it was pretty long. But I would say, you know, if you're looking for a nice holiday movie to watch with the kids, it's not a bad one. They're not going to get the off-color jokes. Yeah. And it has kind of a happy ending, good resolution type thing. So you're not going to go wrong there either.
I think Sayla would probably agree with you about the length of the movie, because once we hit an hour and a half, she kept pushing pause on the remote so she could see the timeline on Netflix to see how much time was left.
Yeah.
So she did that like once every 8 minutes just to see where we were at in the movie. And she must have been feeling it too.
And I would say to Sayla that I was right there with her. I was pushing pause a few times to be like, how could we only be 45 minutes in? Still an hour to go or whatever. More than an hour. So, yeah, I'd say it's a decent film. It's a nice holiday story. And if you're looking for something along those lines, kid friendly, sure, watch it. But it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Sure, absolutely. It also has, I forgot, it has Rita Perlman is in it, of Cheers fame
Really?
and other movies. She played one of the I guess they're grandmothers, but one of the ladies that kind of raised the Grinch. She was one of them. So it just popped in my head. I wanted to get that clear, just in case Rita was listening, that we didn't want to leave her out.
The biddies.
Yes.
One of the biddies, as they're called in this movie.
So, well, let me ask Sayla here first. Come back over here, Sayla, real quick. Please. All right, let's say that the it's going to be 0 to 5 maxes, because the dog. 0 to 5 maxes. And I chose that one because when I was looking into this movie a little bit, there's a weird sect of people who don't like this movie because of how cruel the Grinch is to the dog. Which is so weird to me, because you're talking about the guy who stole Christmas, and that's what you're hung up on. So, all right, Sayla, the movie we watched last night, what number would you get it between 0 and 5? 5 being the best movie you've ever seen, 0 being the worst movie you've ever seen.
5.
5? It's the best movie you've ever seen? You liked it that much? Okay, all right, we'll go with it. 5 it is. We got our first 5 on the show.
Can I go down now?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your input. First 5 on the show.
Awesome.
Well, I don't know if I really agree with her on that one, but
yeah.
I'm gonna be a definitely better than average, I think. There are scenes in this movie that can still make me laugh out loud, like when the Grinch is planning his calendar, and all he's got on his calendar is self-loathing and staring into the abyss. It's just such a great scene.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 3.1. That's where I'm at. 3.1.
Okay. And so I'm gonna say on a scale, an interesting fact about the dog. Max. The dog is played by a dog named Kelley.
Oh.
Yeah. So Max is not a boy dog. Max is a girl.
I had that thought at one point when the Grinch comes home and the dog is up on its hind legs dancing. They do a full shot, and I was like, that's definitely not a boy dog.
Yep. So, how many maxes out of 5 would I give it? I'm going to go ahead and give it 2.9 maxes out of 5.
Oh, we're not too far off, besides Sayla's ridiculous 5.
That's Brian Siemens' category rating of Burger King.
It's true, yeah. Highest it can go for the old BK.
Yes. Well,
for an inside joke that probably none of our listeners will understand.
Jonathan Ducharme will get it.
Oh, yes. Yes. But he's not our only California listener,
right.
Sadly.
Oh, but
he's the number one in our heart, though.
Correct. We did get sorry Todd's parents. We did get an interesting email this week that in the tiny country of Luxembourg, we are number 9 for movie reviews. So
yeah, we are.
That's awesome. We love you, Luxembourg. Keep listening.
Yes, I think. Yes.
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 Yeah, the Grinch never had a life. And then he got excited. You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought you were just rambling, but you're actually talking about something serious.
Yeah.
Podcasting's in your blood, Sayla.
It's true. Well,
So,
that is going to wrap up our holiday edition of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guest Sayla Domer. Did you want to mention how old Sayla is? Because I think that's pertinent.
sure. Sayla is 5.
Sayla's
just
5,
in case.
yes.
5.5, I guess, if you want to get technical.
5.5, yeah.
You are 5.5. I think I. Well, mommy's wrong in this area. You are 5.5.
Well, that being said, we reviewed on the old podcast today How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and we gave it an average rating over all three of us of 3 2/3 of a Max the dog out of 5. So that's pretty high.
Max the dog. That's really Kelley the dog.
It's really Kelley, yes. It's pretty high, but, when you have a 5.5-year-old on the podcast, you might get some outlier ratings.
You never know what you're going to get.
It's true.
When you got the old 5-year-old on.
Yes. So, thank you for listening. Happy holidays to everyone. And keep listening. We'll keep making podcasts.
Also, if anyone wants to be on our podcast, we're always open to having someone else, including if you just want to put your 5-year-old on. I'm sure we're fine with that.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good to me.
As long as it's a 5-year-old appropriate movie, I suppose.
Correct.
So, think about that, listeners, and get back to us.
Think about it.
Da 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 da.
Da da.
Da da da.
Da da da.